Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business. I'm your co-host, JP John Paz for Two Man Power Trip. Joining me, of course, is my co-host, the financial wrestling genius, Lavi Margolin. Lavi, how you doing?
I'm doing good. As the summer marches along, just returned from visiting some family in Providence, Rhode Island. A little disappointed to see that I'm missing a one of those small town street fairs in August where they have pro wrestling. As one of the attractions. I've never
Uh,
one of those things. One of the quieter economic drivers of independent pro wrestling. But today we have a very special guest who just in the last couple of months came on my radar for his excellent articles looking at the business side of pro wrestling and strategy, especially related to New Japan, Japan, and Asia more broadly. He is a business analyst, also a program coordinator, currently based out of Madrid, Spain. Welcome to the show, Justin Ray.
Hi, everybody. Nice. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored. And yeah, let's talk about New Japan.
Yes. So where are you? Where are you located exactly?
Very far from Asia. I live in Madrid, Spain, but I'm originally from Manila, Philippines, and I have roots in Hong Kong as well. So yeah, I'm very much involved in like whatever is happening in Southeast Asia.
So how did you
Yeah.
become a fan or such a big fan of what's going on over there?
Honestly, like Puroresu was, it's such a big deal. Like you're never gonna escape it in Asia. Like people are not. It's still niche, but like people will know who Antonio Inoki is. But me being a wrestling fan, I started being one when I was around like 11, 12. It was I remember it was the build up to WrestleMania 21 when John Cena won the WWE Championship. So yeah. And
So
since then like I've started like expanding my horizons and started watching like other promotions like TNA, AEW, etc. So yeah.
so is New Japan though? That's kind of your favorite, or are you a WWE fan?
um i I like my me watching wrestling kind of like phased out after like during university and like after because like adult life kind of got in the way. But I really love watching AEW, some New Japan, and recently I've started like dipping my toes into like all the shows in Wrestle Universe. So yeah.
Now, what made you want to do like the analysis side or the business side of wrestling and start like covering the business? Why did you decide to, get in that world?
Um, Honestly, like I just feel like people should talk about it more, just because like and it should also be like a point of discussion wherein like we just don't talk about like booking, because obviously where the discussion mostly is on the internet is going to be about booking stuff and like I don't, whoever won the world championship, etc. But also the business side is what interests me the most, because like I like seeing how certain like how countries in general, for example Japan, obviously like Japan already has like a stable like wrestling industry, but at the same time it still gets affected by like by regional politics. For example, like how like how Abe's economic policies have affected people going out, how the COVID policies also affected like people going out. That in that piqued a lot of my interest, but also like I just started writing more about it just because I just wanted to like meet and network with like-minded individuals. So pretty that's pretty much it. Yeah.
When you look at like analysis or even specifically New Japan Pro Wrestling, is it hard to kind of get analysis or get a focus because it's New Japan? Like, would it be easier if it was another promotion?
Um. Well, honestly, like I feel like it would be easier because whenever New Japan would publish something, it would be they would compared to like other press releases, they would have a focus on the business aspect of it more. Like For instance, like whenever they talk about Stardom and how they're consolidating like resources logistically and stuff, I found that out through the official website, not through like some aggregated like news site. So I feel like it's much easier getting it from like from Japanese websites because they kind of delve into it, the business side at least. So yeah.
Now, speaking of the business side, I know Lavi is just chomping at the bit to ask you some questions. Lavi.
Yes.
Yeah. And Justin, you're definitely on the right podcast, given your interest. So I'm gonna hit you with just like one more question about you, and then
Yeah, for sure.
we'll focus on the business side. So my background is in terms of like career planning and so on. And one of my earliest mentors and inspirations, Chris Harrington Mukigana, now vice president of AEW, one of the vice presidents, of course.
Okay.
There's many. He when he announced sort of on WrestleNomics sort of that he would be stepping away, he said, really, my aspiration wasn't necessarily to become a journalist in pro wrestling. It was always to be involved in the business because I did business analysis for this type of corporation, that type of corporation. So is your ultimate goal, do you want to be a business analyst for Bushiroad, for Cyber Agent, for AEW one day, or do you just enjoy like the analysis side?
Right now, I just enjoy the being like, just dissecting whatever's happening in that side of the globe. But eventually, yes, I would like to make a career out of this because like wrestling's everybody's passion here. So it would be nice to work in some capacity with any of those promotions. Hopefully Bushiroad, but like AEW would be good as well. Yeah.
So you'll keep our contact information as you continue to progress. So first, let me start out with a broad question, and you can take it however you want. We said let's talk about New Japan. Let's talk about New Japan. So like,
yeah,
if I were to say what's going on with New Japan, what is going on with New Japan, meaning that there's a lot of like consternation with Bushiroad's stock price, with their position in the market. What are the most important things that we need to know right now about New Japan's business?
Okay, so basically, I feel like in order to evaluate how New Japan is doing right now, and is how Tanahashi is. Sorry, let me rephrase. Tanahashi's like laid out a 10-point plan, and I feel like we should evaluate his presidency over the next coming months on how he strives to like execute these. For example, like point number one would be talent discovery and development. We're seeing it right now, somewhat somehow, with for example the Reiwa Three Musketeers. Like we're seeing them like more prominently. So we see Sugiyota, Shota Umino, Ren Narita. We're also seeing like today, I think, like the finals of the qualifying match between for the two blocks of the G1. We have Bolton Oleg versus Taichi. Hopefully Oleg wins. That way we can see how Tanahashi's trying to book like the younger talent and how he's trying to like build them up. Uh, we're also going to see how he's going to try to like elevate the value of the title belts. So one thing that caught my attention was I think it was published 2 days ago when he had the press conference with Taro Okada from Stardom. How he wanted to like obviously we already know about Stardom and New Japan already like consolidating resources in order to like save money, number one, and also to like and also hopefully like this will make internal communication between New Japan and Stardom more effective and more streamlined. I'm hoping over the next coming months that like for this we're going to see a very close cooperation with Stardom wrestlers, with New Japan wrestlers, and I'm very happy to see that he's taking it seriously based on what he said in the press conference 2 days ago. So we're going to have well, in regards to Stardom, we're going to have like the Matsuri event which is going to be on the day 2 days before Wrestle Kingdom, if I'm not mistaken. And also, we're going to have an IWGP committee, which will consist of like former IWGP champions. I feel like from internally, I feel like that would be a great way for like them to consider like whom they should push and whom they should promote, I guess. So yeah. So basically what I'm saying here is when when we when we evaluate all these things, I'm hoping that Tanahashi pushes through with all the directives he's done in the next few months. I can't I can't I can't give him any sort of grade right now because like obviously this will take some time, and we're going to see how this would be accepted by the audience in Japan and also globally. So let's see.
So part of like the wrestling world is sort of like factions now, especially when we think about it from like a North American centric perspective, but we can literally see it with New Japan booking,
Definitely.
the Dome with their own Stardom, but and of course Khan's promotions, AEW and Ring of Honor, but also their longtime partner or associate CMLL. Versus WWE, where there's more sort of like that informal and relationships, of course, with TNA, AAA. Well, they still do stuff with AEW, so like that's a little bit up in the air. A little bit with GCW and so on. So that's a little bit more complex. But thinking about it from the New Japan side, one of the things I have questions about is like, what is the value of bringing, let's say, a Ring of Honor to the Dome? Like, does that really? It must mean something. So, like, what does that mean in the context of things?
Well, when every sort of like collaboration would be good, in my opinion. For example, like whenever they would like introduce someone new, I feel like the earliest wrestler that they've incorporated in New Japan from AEW would be Wheeler Yuta from Best of Super Junior, and it didn't receive that strong of a reaction. Put it that way. But like any sort of cross cultural, like no, not cultural. Sorry, sorry. Any sort of like promotion going on amongst these companies would be great because, for example, like if you introduce this wrestler, this would keep the product fresh. You're introducing like it's like you're introducing someone new in the ecosystem and see how they would disrupt it. So, and it's very interesting to see how the entire roster would react with this person coming in. Would they affect the main booking based on how the audience would react, or would it be would it help the partner promotion as well? For example, like when Jack Perry somehow was introduced in New Japan as Scapegoat, where he debuted as Scapegoat, it was very like he kind of disrupted you know the, I don't know how to phrase it properly, like the booking by like by being involved in the New Japan Cup and by joining House of Torture. Like we see his star rise amidst the scandal, right? So that's something good. But in regards to New Japan, if like hopefully, like I hope that they savvily like get a good wrestler that would like get people talking. I don't want I don't want them just like inviting a random like wrestler for no particular reason and nothing, and it wouldn't be beneficial to the New Japan side because obviously like there's already been talks on the internet, especially Twitter, whenever there is a partnership between like AEW, New Japan, whatever, and they would say that like the partnership is a bit skewed towards AEW's favor because like, oh, they're getting all the good stars, they're getting Ishii, they're getting Tanahashi, but what does New Japan get? They're getting Gates of Agony. I mean, it's great, but like hopefully like it's more like there's a purpose to it, and some there's like a long term thing going on. So hopefully, let's see. We'll see how New Japan like does it with like more collaboration. One thing that excites me though is Wrestle Dynasty on the 5th of January, and we're going to see how they're going to do their own Forbidden Door. So that's interesting.
So on the other side of things, there's been speculation of what's going on with the WWE, Abima, Cyber Agent. Like, what do you make of all that, and what might be like the end goals there?
I'm very excited about that because like I think it was like a couple of months ago when Nick Khan put out on either an interview or a press conference, I'm not sure, saying that like he would like to have WWE more involved in the wrestling world, not just focused towards WWE. And granted that for now it's been mostly like special single matches. For example, I think the first one was Nakamura versus who was it again? The Great Muta, right? Yeah, that one. That was the first one in Noah. So I think that kind of like sparked the collaboration between the two companies, between the two promotions rather, and also like there's also there's they've been slowly like introducing their superstars outside of the WWE. For example, in Bloodsport, Shayna Baszler, I think, competed against Masha Slamovich, which was fun. I have not watched the match, so I would like to check it out. But also, like we also see that WWE has also been collaborating with Ogawa Marigold, because I know that Io Sky will be having a match with, who is it again? Utami, right? No, or Julia, one of them. Yeah. So basically, it's one step forward for WWE. I'm really excited to see how AEW would react, and I'm also very excited to see how like this would affect the United Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance, because like we know that the alliance was established in order to prevent something like something in order to prevent how WWE kind of gutted out the UK and their promotions. And I know that they're still recovering now. So with the WWE slowly like keeping it fresh in Japan, I'm hoping to see how UJW, the United Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance, would react, and how other promotions would react as well. I feel like it's very exciting because like this would make the competition be, feel more, no, what am I saying? This would make the competition step up more, I guess, and anything that would like keep them up their toes and everyone's toes, including the fans, would be quite exciting as well. So yeah, I'm very excited.
For yourself in Europe, how do you consume like New Japan content? Is it all online and through New Japan World?
Yeah, New Japan World mostly. So yeah.
So with Stardom and now Marigold, like how do you feel like Stardom has it kept like its special sauce and uniqueness like under, well, now it's officially under New Japan, but just being in the Bushiroad environment, and like what are the challenges now with having Marigold being out there in the market?
With Marigold out being out in the market, we saw an exodus of like wrestlers from Stardom to Marigold, like Hayashita with Julia, etc. It's it's quite exciting because like we see we see that the mid card and the lower card step up. We see that with Mei Seira. We see that with Starlight Kid, who just who took advantage of Queen's Quest disbanding and somewhat creating a new faction. We'll see in the next few weeks. We're seeing booking changes that are very dynamic. We're seeing very exciting storylines sprout out of Stardom, and we see a very important collaboration, a very important like cross promotional storyline happen with Shirakawa and Tony Storm and Mariah May in AEW, which is very exciting. And we're seeing more and more of that collaboration, which is great. And yeah, so yeah, again, very happy word of the day. I'm very excited to see how Stardom would react to Marigold putting up more shows. I know that like Marigold is kind of new, but it's already it's already been booking a lot of very good matches. So we'll see what happens in the next few months.
Awesome. Let me turn over to John.
Yes.
So with New Japan and AEW, going back to that relationship, does New Japan think that they're? I know obviously they have this big Wrestle Dynasty show, so obviously
Yes.
they're together for sure. But do they feel like they might be getting the short end of the stick on some of this stuff?
I feel like if I feel like yes and no at the same time. Yes, because obviously like they're not utilizing the partnership savvily, if I may. Just because like for example we, we see how AEW and ROH uses like the New Japan wrestlers. We see them like sporadically, and there's always lots of fanfare. We see Ishii, we see uh, Jeff Cobb, Great Khan, Will Ospreay. We see a lot of contracts expire from New Japan, and a lot of them moving to AEW, ROH. For Jay White, Will Ospreay, Okada. The thing is, like, especially in this economic climate in Japan, at least, the yen, the yen is really bad right now. I know that, like, just a few weeks ago, like they've started stopping the quantitative easing in terms of like the Japanese yen. It hasn't done much. So with New Japan finally, concluding the Forbidden Door 3 event alongside AEW, I am hoping to see more purposeful like collaboration. So I feel like it's also New Japan's not fault per se, but like non not ag- aggression, I guess, non aggression to get some of AEW stars. I mean, we see it slowly happen when Tanahashi became president. We see we saw Jack Perry in Windy City. We saw Eddie Kingston, which is great in the strong product, in the New Japan of America product. But I would like to see more more established wrestlers from that side, from not that side, from AEW to like the regular shows. One good thing that's come out of it was during the BOSJ, we did not get any AEW wrestler. We got Blake Christian from ROH, but we got him. We when you watch that BOSJ, it's a bit strange because like in ROH he's a face, he's all heart, but he came out as GCW Blake Christian, which is not too congruent with the storyline. So I also feel like there's a lot of incongruency with AEW and ROH. So that's why we're also seeing some incongruency with the New Japan collaborations. So one thing that New Japan has to do is to be aware of what's happening in the partner promotions and see how they could weave that together with their own product. One good thing that I see with Tanahashi's presidency, or at least happened during Tanahashi's presidency, was Konosuke Takeshita being involved in the G1. So let's see how he utilizes Takeshita and whether a storyline will come out of the G1, his participation in the G1. Also, just to point out, I feel like this G1 is very important because I feel like New Japan's at the point where a lot of their big superstars have left, and I feel like they cannot rely on Naito anymore and on Tanahashi anymore to carry the whole business. Just because obviously they're old, they don't perform as well as they used to. We see this in Forbidden Door just a week ago with John Moxley versus Naito. Naito wasn't at his best, but at the same time, it's a very interesting opportunity. No, it's an opportunity for New Japan to book their younger superstars better and see how they would change the booking. So yeah, I hope that they utilize the partnership better, and I hope with the following months to come, we see how they would do the build for Wrestle Dynasty. Obviously, no match has been announced yet, but I hope it's a match that would raise some eyebrows and also still be congruent with the storylines for all the companies. So yeah.
Do you think Wrestle Dynasty will take precedent over the, obviously Wrestle Kingdom, which is the January 4th show? Do you think they're going to load up Dynasty? Because that might take away from the New Japan show, which obviously is their big show of the year.
There's a big fear that would happen because my big fear for New Japan, whenever it's Itenyon period, they would clump up the shows together. Like 2 years ago during the pandemic, they had Wrestle Kingdom for 2 days, and then the third day I think was a collaboration show with Noah. That should have been a big deal, and I felt like it wasn't spaced very well compared to their other shows. So I mean, they've already booked it. They've already I guess they've already reserved the stadiums and Tokyo Dome. So there is that danger of Wrestle Dynasty taking precedence over Wrestle Kingdom. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, where can everybody find you? Social media, links, everything. Where can everybody find you?
Okay, so for LinkedIn, it's basically LinkedIn/JustinCKW. That's where I write most of my wrestling stuff anyways. On Twitter, it's JustinCKW as well. So yeah, that's it.
All right, Justin, awesome. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. All the way over there in Madrid. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thanks so much. Take care.
So much.
Have a good one, Justin. Let's get to some news. Lavi, what is going on? What is the latest in the world of wrestling? Where would you want to start off? Is there that you want to start off with WWE? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, John. So I'm going to put you on the hot seat now. I believe that you traveled to Philly for TNA Wrestling, the 2300 Arena on that Saturday evening, which has been reported basically as super no vacancy, sold out. So I'd love to hear if that was the case, what the logistics look like, what was vibing there.
I'm not actually sure how many seats were set up. I was trying to get a feel for it, but it's it was the normal kind of MLW setup, but I noticed with more seats, in the corners. I don't know if you've been there, but when you walk in, there's the corners kind of where the snack stand is, if you will. Way more seats going back than MLW. MLW usually has the seats kind of pushed forward. So not to say it's a better setup or anything like that. It just seemed like they were expecting more people, so they set up more chairs. And it definitely, to me, was definitely sold out because there was no room. We were standing, so we just decided to stand, and there was a bunch of people standing around too. So it was definitely sold out, but I wouldn't say it was more than 1,000 or so because I just couldn't get a feel because I'm not exactly sure what it holds. I know the old ECW arena used to sardine 1,000 people in there, like they're like buddied up next to each other. We had plenty of space as far as when we're standing, but there was definitely somebody next to me here, somebody next to me here. So I think I don't know. I would say over 1,000. It was definitely sold out, and they were saying standing room only. It definitely was when I was looking around. So I feel like it sold really well.
Yeah, and it was unique in that it was the second day, right? Friday night and then
Yep.
Saturday night, and that's usually
Yep.
very hard to draw. So I was surprised with that. Even on the show, sometimes, unless it seems like something unique is going on, usually I just look at the first day because the first day is
Yeah.
usually the most
I feel
telling.
like
Now,
they were
mhm.
smartly. Oh, sorry to cut you off. I feel like smartly, the Hardy Boys were in the main event basically of the second night, and that was like a big draw. And Joe Hendry was wrestling on the second night. I think he might have been wrestling the first night too, but people were very interested in him. So I feel like the Hardys actually wrestling as a team, that was good because you had Matt on the first night wrestling with Rebby, his wife, and the second night, like kind of make it two different attractions. So I feel like that's kind of probably why it did so well.
Yeah, and in terms of the fan base, right? There's like the TNA, the hardcores, but like, did you get a sense that that there was some people that were there just for the Hardys, some people that it's hard to tell, but sometimes like there for Joe Henry just because he's becoming like a crossover star, and then of course the NXT thing, where you have those stars that have been spotlighted. Do you think like it was breaking through to different degrees, different types of fans?
I do think so in a certain extent because you had the NXT guys, which is just interesting because it's WWE technically worked with TNA, so that definitely draws up interest. I feel like Joe Hendry might have been the most over guy there. There was definitely interest in them. There was definitely a bunch of Joe Hendry T-shirts. I mean, people were definitely interested in him. So it's like, okay, you're getting maybe some WWE fans. You might be getting these Joe Hendry fans that like kind of think it's cool. But there's no doubt about it. The Hardy Boys were definitely a huge attraction because they did a signing afterwards, after the match, in the nice little not hallway, like where they have this nice bar set up. They basically did it in the big room there, and they had a ton of fans wanting to meet the Hardy Boys. So they are definitely still a draw. And to their credit, they both look great. So it's one of those things where like if they're old and broke it down, oh, how come AEW didn't book them correctly? They look in phenomenal shape. Matt, especially. I mean, he's like ripped to the gills. So I was like, man, these guys look like complete stars. I could see WWE wanting to scoop them up again. That's how like in shape they look.
I'm glad to hear because I was going to ask about how Jeff was doing because of course with the news it's concerning, but maybe just doing a limited number of shows if he is ultimately exclusive to TNA or something like that might be best rather than like just getting out there as much as possible at this point in his career, depending on his financials. Were there any maybe like old school TNA stars that you would think would be more over that people just weren't interested in? I'm not sure if like Tommy Dreamer had a match where like he would typically be like, oh, it's Tommy Dreamer, whereas like maybe this fan base wasn't as interested. Any feel like that?
Not particularly, but they did have Rhino come out. He got a nice little pop. They had Dreamer come out at the end. Rhino actually kind of wrestled, so he wrestled AJ Francis, but Dreamer did come out at the end and got a nice little pop, like like the go home happy kind of pop. So I feel like they were definitely happy, but it with the old school ECW guys. But I almost feel like it wasn't necessarily like that Philly crowd where they just love everything Philly. There was some ECW chants, oddly enough, which was just kind of strange. But it felt like the crowd was definitely more of like a hardcore TNA, but super into the Hardys and super into Joe Hendry. So it was kind of like a little bit of a mix. I feel like maybe Sammy Callahan wasn't as over as the last time that I saw him there, but overall, I think the guys who were supposed to be over were over. Like Moose was over big time as a heel. AJ Francis was over big time as a heel. So I feel like the guys who should have been over as a heel got over. Should have been over as a face. Got over really big, like Hardys and Hendry.
How are the merchandise lines?
Pretty good, actually. I noticed people buying those Joe Hendry. He's got a new shirt that looks pretty cool. So I feel like they were doing pretty good. I like the setup that they had. They had the nice posters everywhere. I feel like they really classed up the joint, if you will. Good stuff. And I know sometimes with other promotions, when you're in that building, you can kind of just go back and forth and backstage area and do this. But TNA is you got to have the pass, you got to have the your badge. So they really the more professional outfit, I would say. Sometimes TNA for sure.
Any any of the executives sort of like stand out in terms of like observing things or controlling things? Some of the new blood, or some that have been with the promotion, where we were talking about that like corporate tree. I'm not sure if those people stand out. Anything noticeable in that way?
I didn't notice who they were, but I did see a bunch of corporate guys walking around. I did see Ross Foreman, who's the PR guy. He was kind of directing traffic for a lot of things, even the autograph signing and stuff. So I did see maybe, I guess, some familiar faces. Homicide was there. I guess he was working some backstage stuff maybe with TNA. And of course, my buddy, longtime close personal friend, Ace Steele was there as well, who's obviously he works backstage as a producer. So got to see Ace for a little bit as well.
Nice. And I don't know if it's typical. Did they do like an announcement like, oh, we'll be back in, whenever? Or nothing about that to announce yet? Well,
unless I missed it, I didn't hear that, so I'm not sure. But one thing I noticed is they definitely tightened up the show. Like they kept it moving. Some of the matches were 8 to 10 minutes, nothing like crazy, and even the longer matches might have been 12 minutes. Like they didn't do anything crazy super long with the match. So I felt like just the flow of the show was really good. Like boom, next match, entrance, music, video, like they kept it going smooth. It was about 3 hours, almost. I think it was 3 hours exactly. So I like that. Like they were really on point. I was pretty impressed with just the production team and how like quick they were able to kind of move in and out and stuff.
And final question, because she's one of my favorites as well. Jordynne Grace, like, did she seem like more over having crossed over like from the Royal Rumble and NXT and all that sort of stuff?
I don't know if I would think more over, but she got a good pop. Like people were definitely excited when her music hit and when her match was going on. And I wouldn't say it was like crazy like Joe Hendry or anything like that, but she got a decent pop.
Nice. Thank you for being on the ground, John.
Yes.
So just one other piece about TNA before moving along. It just goes to show the integration into the community, into Montreal and Quebec, and the importance of that. There's now a PCO burger. PCO exclusively available at La Belle et la Bouffe Promenade Saint Bruno. Hopefully I didn't mess that up too bad. And all participating franchises: beef, cheese, bacon, onions, jalapeno, and mayo. So definitely not kosher, but great integration into the community. I think things like that are always really smart.
Love that. That's great. Just as far as AEW and New Japan is concerned, so New Japan has that show right in DC. That didn't draw so well, or isn't drawing so well. And did Forbidden Door, did it sell out?
Yes. So in terms of Capital Collision, which is August 30th. So thus far, and this time moves along, right? It's still under 1,000 tickets sold. So I don't have a comparison point at the last time that they were there, but it seems kind of slow with their setup that's just under 3,000 people. And as we've talked about, they're not running as many shows, anymore in the US, that they're focusing on some of these tentpole events, as I described them, plus, working with AEW, of course, for Forbidden Door. So you sort of have that expectation that shows like this would draw, at least 2,000 or above. So they can get there. I don't know if they've announced any matches yet. They may have. But it's not like week to week that they're moving a lot of tickets. So 50 tickets, according to WrestleTix, when I grabbed this screen grab, to the 7 days prior. Now, Forbidden Door really picked up a lot, and I would say was like a big win for them. There were questions about, how much this meant and how much it can draw and so on, especially with AEW having its struggles. And this show ended up, according to WrestleTix, tickets distributed 10,620. Now, WrestleTix isn't disputing the fact that there's been higher numbers announced. This would include things like box seating and that sort of thing. I think it's been announced 11. Okay, New Japan reported 11,477. Tony Khan mentioned over 11,000. So I think a big win, and doing like it really picked up momentum. And then you add MJF into the mix. I hadn't seen anything about like any local articles this time focusing on MJF, but I think that's a big win for them, and it's a big win for pro wrestling, right? Like you had this huge show at MSG, sold out, maximum capacity that they can do for a modest SmackDown setup at really high ticket prices, and then really within reasonably the same market. You can take, like I talked about, you could take the train even now from Grand Central in Midtown on the east side from Manhattan to Belmont Park, which has a raceway, and get there as well. And 2 days later, you're drawing over 11,000 people. So healthy to see, good to see, and I think a win for AEW and for New Japan, whatever that means in terms of their financial relationship, whether it's co-promotion, splitting ticket sales or whatever that is, or it's just a fee paid to AEW. That's not exactly clear, but certainly this relationship should continue given the success of this event. And like we just talked about with Justin, that it'll continue in other ways, including this multi-promotion show in Tokyo.
Let's talk about micro wrestling. What is going on? What is this? Micro Wrestling Federation? What is this?
Yeah, so this is the promotion that we've talked about that, as far as I understand, and there could be more than one, that has like a residency in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is sort of like a tourist attraction in that region, that they do multiple shows a day. They have multiple tours ongoing, which in itself, none of those are huge draws, but it's just sustainable. But Staten Island gets 2,000 people. It was reported that that were drawn there to the Staten Island Ferry Hawks, the minor league team arena, which baseball stadium, which, as we've talked about, like something about, and Jeff Jarrett knows this, you have one or two, maybe two could be pushing it. One or two shows at a minor league venue that tends to draw well, and you push it like all summer, all season, people are going to come out for it. And it's not my thing. It feels a little bit like, exploitative, but I'm sure some of the micro wrestlers would disagree, and they certainly have that right. But like, just in terms of the way things are promoted, but people are curious. It seems like it's family friendly, and they're able to draw. So just drawing from that article, the coverage of that event, by Nick Regina of the Staten Island Advance. It's normally a site to take in a leisurely ball game, but on Monday night, Staten Island University Hospital Community Park was transformed into a wrestling battleground. Approximately 2,000 jacked up fans filled the ballpark in St. George, taking a night of Micro Wrestling Federation action. MWF, which is the subject of the Discovery Channel reality show Big Little Brawlers, as we've talked about, it drawing pretty good ratings, is the longest running little person wrestling organization in existence, according to its website. It was founded in 2000 and it's based out of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, but also travels coast to coast. Okay, so confirming what I mentioned. Scenes from Monday's Wrestling Federation. The Federation's roster of characters was on full display in Staten Island, where they pulled off a high-flying stunts and hard-hitting takedowns in the ring, which was situated on the infield. An enthusiastic crowd fed off of the palpable energy and went wild as a number of compelling matchups took place. Fans packed the arena surrounding home plate and liked what they saw. Everyone, check out this article on this really, I don't want to say historic event, but really impressive draw. Like, it's that some people don't consider it's just out of New York City. It is part of New York City, and really basically matching a high watermark for non-WWE AEW attendance, basically matching the Hammerstein Ballroom with GCW at their GCW The World event from a couple of years ago.
What is up with this Harris poll? Is this a WWE centric poll?
So, Sports Business Journal had a WWE centric article looking at its negotiation prospects in terms of working with cities and bidding and so on, which has I think been fairly well covered by others. But this supplemental article I don't think has been covered. So it covers pro wrestling generally, but also WWE centric. In terms of what's been revealed, and we'll talk about in a second, I think some more of the data would be helpful to know. So on behalf of Sports Business Journal, Harris poll asked basically 1,100 U.S. residents 18 plus questions regarding pro wrestling. Respondents were selected from a pool of those who had agreed to participate in the firm's online research. Okay, so 41% of respondents would consider going to a major pro wrestling event if it came to their area. And 65, so that's compared to 65% would consider attending a non-wrestling major spring event. 38% say their area marketing itself as a destination of pro wrestling would has a positive impact on their opinion. So 38% saying a positive impact. Okay, good. Did the others say that it would have a negative impact? Were they not sure? So that's something that would be nice to know. 30% of respondents are fans of pro wrestling. In comparison, 33% are fans of MMA and 37% are fans of boxing. 1/3 of respondents have a positive opinion about wrestling. 38% had a positive opinion of the WWE. So it's like separated. But again, in comparison, we don't know if people were unsure, didn't have any opinion, what percent had a negative opinion. So hopeful, but maybe not as helpful as our friend Gavin Bridges report the previous week. But it's always good to see things like that.
Now, as far as OVW is concerned, I know they are on a bit of a roll after the Netflix show, but what's going on now?
So our friend, former guest of the show, John Cosper, wonderful author, also is a regular contributor to Slam Wrestling, especially focused on attending these OVW shows and reporting on that. OVW shuts down Davis Arena for upgrades. With less than 36 hours before its Fan Appreciation Night TV, OVW stunned fans on Monday morning by announcing all shows at Davis Arena would be postponed temporarily. The move to close the arena comes after a sweltering hot Saturday night pay-per-view on June 29th. Fans of the promotion were more than happy to pack the arena, but many left the arena suffering from dehydration, fatigue, and other symptoms from the heat. John, I don't know if you remember, I think it was Progress Wrestling in New York one year. Like they packed out like a Queens venue, like a community center, which didn't have any heat. And like at least one person passed out and like, not to get too graphic, but like lost control of their bowels. It was a terrible. Well, it was sorry, I don't mean to laugh at anyone's predicament, but there's been like a whole narrative of like who called the police on that event and so on that I'm reflecting in my own mind about. But with fans expected to pack the building again on July 2nd for a free event, concerned for their safety led management to suspend the action in OVW's home base. OVW is committed to giving the fans the best experience possible when it comes to a live event, said producer Jesse J-Mo Morris on Facebook. We'll take this opportunity to make the improvements needed to upgrade the facility to make the live event experience of OVW one that all can be proud of. OVW is doing the right thing by their fans and their talent. That building is hot on normal days, let alone the heat we get in the summer. Makes a ton of sense to avoid the potential disaster with fans. Fans were understandably disappointed, but by and large understanding. It was the right call from OVW to postpone. This was OVW appreciating the fans and looking out for everyone's safety. While Davis Arena will be empty of fans for the time being, that doesn't mean the promotion itself is on hiatus. OVW's summer tour will continue to roll on. The promotion recently announced an end of summer schedule, including appearance by Kevin Nash. The timing isn't the best, which has seen a huge upswing in attendance the last few months, thanks in part to discounted summer ticket prices and a grassroots online fan community, plus remaining buzz from the Netflix series The Wrestlers. At the same time, the promotion is going out on a high note, leaving fans hungry and wanting more. So really great coverage there, and glad to see the venue being upgraded. As we've covered it for a number of years, there was talk about with the new ownership and investment and so on, moving into other places and so on. But good to see them upgrading and hopefully getting some better air conditioning. And I'd imagine fans experiencing this for a number of years. As right, the Davis Arena has been used by OVW for about 30 years now.
What is the latest with GCW? Because another surprise by the War Master himself, Josh Barnett, and Brett and the guys over at GCW, more WWE talent.
From the amateur mats to the ring, NXT, this pair of brutes are now storming their way to Bloodsport mat. Brutus and Julius Creed are coming to Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 11, of course, under GCW's banner as well. So interesting to see more NXT and WWE talent coming over. Really curious to see if Nick Khan will appear at this event. And as I've talked about, I'll be there. And I don't watch a lot of NXT, but the Creed brothers have always stood out to me. Were they the Diamond Exchange as really special talent? So curious to see what this all means.
The Diamond Mine. You wish they were the Diamond Exchange with Diamond Dallas Page back in the day. Yeah.
Diamond Stud, Diamond Dallas Page.
Yes. Now, just as far as NWA, have they changed anything as far as what they're doing, or is NWA still same production, etc.?
Yeah, so just a quick note on NWA as well. Gary Ward who watches the programming regularly on X, had tweeted out that there's a clear upgrade in production in recent months for the NWA. Sound, ring lighting, graphics during the matches, interviews, and the communications have all improved. Audience increasing as well. Really positive signs. So good to see investments in that. It's always a shame when not only are there investments in talent, as we've heard of NWA signing a number of talents or re-signing a number of talents, including Colby Carino for their type of deals, but it's a shame if the lighting is poor, the sound is bad, it's hard to grow in that way. So good to see NWA continuing to scale up in that way and waiting for whatever other television deals or however you define that have yet to be announced to see how they continue to grow.
So as far as some other additional things, what's going on with Savoldi and what else is going on in this crazy wrestling world?
Yeah, so of course, everyone had talked about rights being, tied up and so on in terms of pro wrestling. WWE's aggressiveness in that way it's sometimes, but there's still things out there. And Savoldi's have a deal now to enter stream Central States Wrestling Kansas, which of course being an offshoot of an NWA affiliate years ago, there's a fair amount of footage as a Flair, Andre, and so on. So really cool. Haven't had a chance to watch a lot of the Savoldi outlets recently, but it seems like they're doing a lot of fun stuff. First Wrestling, we've talked about the Saturday Night Nitro. Ticket sales were so good that they're going to be releasing more on August 8th. And Soft Ground Wrestling, swinging to Africa now. They're getting out there more on Twitch. And they are also going to be airing on the local media company in Nigeria, I believe, NBS TV. So cool to see what they do with that. I'm really curious to see because the type of content they produce isn't necessarily in a episodic format and so on. So really curious to see how they adapt to that. Just circling back to the video that I mentioned that was kind of disturbing, to me at least, with holding a child by their legs and screaming and so on. They've removed that video. So hopefully they've learned from that experience as well. And I hope that it doesn't happen again.
SGW dominating the ranks?
Yes, so with SGW, that's like I mentioned, we have to see what's going on with their media exposure now that they're on that they'll be on Twitch and that they'll be on local Nigerian television to see how that all pans out.
And WBD might be interested in UFC. Would that affect anything with AEW?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about, right? Like you see with certainly the Warner Brothers Discovery, as they have different properties, one promotes the other, right? During the NBA, there's always mentioned AEW will be on this time and insert promos and so on. If the UFC were to be on TNT or TBS and AEW would remain, or there'd be a crossover in time, like would there be any like headbutting there? Or maybe even can the UFC negotiate to be like, okay, we'll give you all of this, but can you, like, we can't work with AEW, so like if you're willing to do that, maybe just air us, and then maybe one day even have WWE. I think they're going to be careful about sort of those sort of rights negotiations, like seeming that they're pushing anyone out of the market, because depending on how you handle that, maybe there's some litigiousness to that, but just a seed of an idea, something that might be a really interesting story ahead that might be covered more by others as it develops, but just wanted to note it as it could have like such a big impact on the business overall.
All right, let's wrap this bad boy up and hit the plugs. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2ManPowerTrip. How about you, Lovey?
Yeah, so first, circling back to our guest, Justin, who I connected with on LinkedIn as an active member of our LinkedIn group, join the conversation and get the resources as well. The Business of the Business LinkedIn group. Follow me on X at LavieMarg, LAVIE. MARG. Let me repeat that: LAVIE MARG. And check out from my long form articles on LionCubJobSearch.com.
All right. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Lavi. Thank you, everybody out there for listening. See you right back here at next time for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.